Okay, I thought I'd answer your question here that you had posed in regards to what you said was your situation. So let's actually take a quick look. Instead of all the different commentary that you'll hear and people's opinions and, trying to convince you one other way or the other just because of something that they think, why don't we let math make that decision for you? How about that? What a concept. So here you are in your present position, right? You've got your house, and you are going to take this lump sum of $321,000 to pay your house off. So you therefore have no more mortgage. All right? Nothing. Zero. Okay? So let's take a look then at that investment. Now, right here you're going to notice that we took $321,000, which you said was that the monies that were coming in, minus the approximate balance of your mortgage of roughly $186 if you took it out in April of this year, which would leave you about $135,000 left over. Now, the good thing is you wouldn't have to pay your mortgage anymore. Now that actual amortized payment came out to $991, and I know you mentioned your payments are about $1,300. You still have to pay taxes and insurance on your property, so that you got to do no matter what. But $991 times 12 is $11,892 per year that you can now save. So this amount needs to be added back in because you can now save your mortgage payment because it's paid off. So we have $135,000 plus $11,892 representing that first year. Then you have $11,892 every year until out here to year 30. Now, when we did the amortized loan, you're going to see in a minute, there was, just because of the month that we started it, then it showed actually that there was just a little bit left over for this 31st year, but that's simply because we might not have had the exact origination date inputted in here correctly. So at year 30, after saving your mortgage payment forever, you're going to notice you have about $983,000 at the end of that year. Now here is a couple assumptions. You got to put your money somewhere, right? So what we did was we showed that you're going to take, the Dave Ramseys of the world, you're going to take their advice, you're going to use a money manager because they all tell you to do that, and they're going to put you in good growth mutual funds, which certainly have fees themselves at a minimum of 1%, and your money manager charges at least 1%. Mutual funds typically, once you take transaction costs and everything else, average about 2.5%, so you're really paying about 3.5%, but we're going to be very conservative and say 1% in mutual fund fees and 1% in money management fees. Okay. Now, in here, I know that a lot of those advisors like to take market history, and they'll take, say, the S&P, and they'll do, they want you to look at 30 years. I mean, certainly if over a 30-year period of time, you should certainly be able to make your 9% average, which is definitely different than the effective, because keep in mind, an average is just adding up all of these units here and then dividing by 30, the number of inputs. But an actual is what your dollar would have done, because you see, if it grew 19 here but lost 10 and lost 13 and lost 23, you've got a lower balance now earning on 26. So the average is not the same as the effective rate of return. If you invested $1 at the beginning of 1981, at the end of 2010 you'd have $9.26. The average was 9, but you actually received a 7.7%. The easiest way to explain that is if you had $100,000 and you lost 25%, you would have how much? You'd have $75,000. That next year, if you gained 25%, are you back to 100? No, you're not, because your $75,000 is now gaining with, or your 25% is now on a smaller balance, 75 grand, which puts you at about roughly $97,000. You are short from your 100. So in a 2-year time frame, you lost money. You've had an effective rate of return that was negative, but yet you averaged 0, right? 25 minus 25 plus is 0, divided by 2 is 0. So average and actual are completely two different things. So over this 30-year time frame of the S&P, which is of the best 500 companies, you would think you would use 7%, 7.7 then, as well, actually most advisors would say, see, even Dave Ramsey says, see, it will average 9.15, and then they'll calculate their numbers as such, and that's just, math doesn't work that way. I'll prove it. You actually got 7.7, but it's even worse than that because of the fees. So let's go ahead and enter that, and then this is what you get. So this 1 year, That first year, your money lost, right? Lost 9.73. We're assuming that you're using an advisor that can get you in a capital position to, or in a position to where not all of your growth is taxable. All right. So you don't have 100% ordinary. You've got some cap gains growth in there. So you don't have any taxes this year, but you did, of course, pay your fee, right? They get paid no matter what. So then this results in an ending balance and a transferred dollar amount that you transferred out of your system, which is going to be what that fee is. See, you transferred your fee. So this just continues to go back and forth. When you grow, when you earn, well, then you definitely have some tax implications there, right? And you continue to pay your fees, and these could have earned for you, but they didn't. So their lost opportunity cost continues to compound because they can no longer earn for you, so there's an actual lost opportunity cost associated with those funds. So we go down all the way to 30 years, and you're sitting at about a balance of 983. Now let's take a look at this. Look at how much you actually transferred away after 30 years. You transferred $1.4 million so you could get a balance of 983. That doesn't seem like a good deal simply because of this. Now, you would think then that if you actually average, let's say if you got the 7% with no losses, let's take a look at that. Look at the difference. You see, when you actually input 7.7 as an actual return every single year with no loss, you end up with more money. But that's not how it works when you're actually compounding dollars on smaller amounts, because the losses are critical. They devastate. They hurt real bad. All right. So this is where you would be. 30-year history is certainly within what people think you can accomplish. This range even says so, that you're getting 7%, 7.7, but in reality you're getting less than that, and you're paying fees here as well. Okay, so that's what they want to tell you, right? So you're paying your fees because, I mean, that's, you need a good advisor, and you're riding the S&P, and it's not all, they're being pretty tax efficient. It's not all cap gains. I mean, we can even, let's give them credit. Let's just say they're really going to make you tax efficient to where only 30% of it's ordinary and 70% is cap gains for you. Let's look at how you end up there. Yeah, you do a little bit better, right? 1.1. So along the way, this is a very strong equities position. They're using mutual funds that are allowing for some tax flexibility to allow them to be efficient, and only just a smaller portion of it is subjected to taxes. But of course, you're going to have a larger cap gains if you decide to liquidate this account. Then your estate value is going to be quite a bit less, because you still have quite a bit of cap gains to pay. All right, but let's just be as conservative as we can. Give the money manager a lot of tax efficiency flexibility, and you're only paying 2%. And hey, let's take the actual 30-year average and let's see what it looks like. Now here's your savings account. You said you had 36 grand. I'm sure that's just sitting in a bank account earning at best 1%, and of course anything there is taxable, so you have a little bit of tax growth on that. And as you go out and look at your balance, then you got a little bit of a balance, but you've maintained some liquidity. So here's that model. If we go out 30 years, your home is, your home's been paid off this whole time, but look at how much you've ended up transferring out of that investment. In fees and taxes, that's cost you $1.3 million in order to have a balance total, including your house, of 1.8. All right? If all we did was minimize this by half and then bring it over here, we're going to win, right? Well, let's take a look to see if we can accomplish that. Let's do this. Let's not follow that advice. You're going to keep your mortgage payment. Now, people will often say, yeah, but why would you spend $8,900 in interest just to save $2,689? And you see, that's the wrong approach. That's the wrong side of the coin, because it really has nothing to do with that. What it has everything to do with is this mortgage didn't cost me $8,962. It cost me about $6,300, which does what? If $8,962 is the interest based upon a 4.75% rate, but because I could write interest off, I actually paid about $6,300, then that would reflect in a lower rate, make my net cost to borrow lower. So see, when you have the mortgage, it isn't about paying $8,900 to save $26. No, It's that I didn't pay $8,900. I paid $63,000, which made my net cost to borrow about 3.5%. So in that position, now let's take that into consideration. So now here, what we're going to lay out is we're going to get this 321 that comes in, and you're going to be a little bit more conservative with it. You're going to say, look, I don't want mutual funds, I don't want to incur those fees, but I'm willing to pay a money manager to manage those funds for 1%, and I want you to be pretty conservative with me, please. Okay? And what he's probably going to have to do is put you more into a mixture of bonds, right? Which does have a higher taxable position and than the 30-70 of being high in equities. So it's going to be more of a blended position because you're going to have a little bit more of a blended portfolio here and significantly less in any kind of cap gains position and equities position. So keep me conservative, I'll pay you the 1%. All right. And what we're going to do is we are going to deplete this systematically. It's called a reducing tax strategy. You're going to reduce an amount, so over, say, a 9-year period of time, you get it to 0, and you notice that you're going to pay significantly less in taxes on that at this point then. Because what you're going to do is you're going to bleed this out to put it into a position to where it can earn tax-free for you and compound without any cap gains as well. So let's take a look. We do have our savings. Your savings account is just your liquidity. It's the same thing here. And what if we put it into one of those accounts to where we take it from this and we put it into this, right? So what if you actually did that into a properly designed insurance tool? Now I know people are going to go, oh my gosh, you're freaking out. What are you, stupid? But how about this concept? You don't use the 4332 to buy a big policy. You use the 4332 to buy the smallest death benefit you can according to the government to make sure all this money is tax-free. All right? So imagine how much insurance you could get if you went into an insurance agent and said, I'm going to pay $40,332 for 9 years on an insurance policy. You'd get an enormous death benefit, right? And all that money would go to cost, waste of money, buy term, invest the difference. But what if you reversed it and used this money to buy the smallest one you possibly could? It'd only buy you about 1.2. Right? So look at all this cash you're getting. Now here there's quite a bit up front. You've only got 22 available. Right? That's an $18,000 up front that you're missing. But as you notice, as you spread out here over time, you have at this point then, what does it cost you? Right? What does it cost you here? You put in 40,000 or 400, you have 412. How much does this tax free? How much does it cost you here? You have exactly what you put in. Right? Now look, you also have to put nothing else in for the rest of your life. It's there forever. Okay? But let's go to year 30. Let's see if this properly designed, max funded, non-MEC, which stands for Modified Endowment Contract Policy, wins. Okay? To where you're buying the smallest death benefit you can, not the biggest, the smallest, to get all your cash back. Let's see what happens. Year 30, you've got 1.2 tax-free in your hands. You can access this money anywhere along the way. Keep in mind, in this position, are they ever going to tell you to pull this money out when you incur a loss? No, of course not. Because you're not going to what? Lock in your losses, right? You went from 1.6 down here to 935. What are you, crazy? You can't lock in your losses. Keep it going, right? So they're never going to recommend you pull that out. So along the way, you have access to this money for any purpose. You can use it however you want, tax-free, penalty-free, qualification-free. But let's just look at the dollar amount. Let's just look at the balance. 1.2. Where are we here? 30 years. 1.1. Huh. Interesting. Now, which one had to take on all the risk? This one did, didn't it? You had to take on a ton of risk. What if you jumped ship right here? What if you didn't? What if you jumped ship right after this one? And you're really messed up, aren't you? But you took all the risk here. What if they weren't this tax efficient? What if taxes go up? That's a real problem. So when we model this then out, let's go ahead and save this for you. Let's go over here, save this. I want to close that comparison case, and I want to open up the new one because I changed some of those tax figures. Let's take a look here. We're at year 30. Okay, because we maintained our home, our tax deduction beat the tax implication that we had, because in our investment we depleted it, right? That 321, we depleted that account, minimized our taxes on it. So we actually beat, from a taxes paid, what most people and what these people are telling you to do by 275 grand. We've also increased our tax-free dollars by over $500,000 by the time that 30 years is up. All right, we have $65,000 in balance improvement. Now that's pretty negligible, but along the way you had complete use and control of this money, complete access to it. You're in a guaranteed position, you're never losing, so you can leverage things in a much better way. That's a different discussion. So so which one took on all the risk? Which one is the position? Now keep in mind, this was over a pretty good time of history where you averaged 9. Your effective was 7.7, right? You transferred $1 million more over here. $1 million. If you recall at the very beginning when I said if we can just minimize some of this and bring it to it, well, look what happens. So if something were to happen to you, not only do you have bigger balances to play with, but if something were to happen, you've also added an additional $1.1 million worth of tax-free passing to your estate. So you tell me, should you pay off your mortgage or not?